Hello and welcome to this special crossover episode of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am Jeff Snider of Locked On Dodgers. I always point the wrong way. That is Lucas Smith of Locked On Cardinals. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, every
Uh,
day.
Unless it's Locked On Cardinals being your first listen of the day.
But why would it be? Anyway, the Dodgers and Cardinals are going to be playing each other in the National League wildcard game tomorrow. And we thought, why don't we talk about it? Because, we had a fun time talking about the Dodgers Cardinals series. When was that? Back in June?
The first time they played, back in June.
Yeah, and had a good time talking about that. And, we seem to like each other, get along pretty well for now until tomorrow when we're bitter, permanent enemies forever. So we figure we might as well take advantage of the fact that we still like each other right now to talk about this series. So, Lucas, I guess my first question for you is, how badly are the Cardinals going to lose this game, do you think?
It's relentless. You did the same thing at the playoff preview. Ridiculous. I think that I don't know how you feel, but from a Cardinals perspective, I wouldn't think any team would actually want to play the Cardinals right now. You can joke all you want. They're one of the hotter teams in baseball. They had one of the best Septembers in the history of baseball. They had a 17-game winning streak, and I know that that's pretty historic, to say the least. So I think that the Dodgers, all the respect in the world to Los Angeles, 106-win team. Sully talked about the best title defense ever and still didn't get the National League West crown. I would still be scared from the Dodgers because it's a one-game playoff. And as we've seen in the history of this wildcard game, anything can happen in one-game playoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically what it boils down to. If you look at the last 10 games, the Dodgers are 8-2, the Cardinals are 7-3. So after I guess I don't know if it matters much, but the Cardinals they're not going into the playoffs on that hot streak. They've been playing very well still. And, I'd be nervous about any team in a wild card game because anything can happen in one game. And the fact is the Cardinals, who I do think that, to win 17 games in a row, you have to have some luck. Some things have to bounce right. But
Yeah.
I also don't think there's ever been a bad team. I don't think there's ever been a team that isn't very good that won 17 straight games. And so, the fact is the Dodgers do have to face a very good team in a one game play-in game, basically, to get into the real playoffs. I kind of distinguish. I call this the postseason, but the playoffs don't start till the division series. It's the postseason because it happens after the season, but it's not really the playoffs yet. And so it's not fun. And I mentioned this on yesterday's episode of Locked On Dodgers. Obviously the system sucks, but it's also the same system that has sucked this way for a long time. And, the fact that it's now affecting the Dodgers probably isn't a good reason to change it, but I wonder if it might end up being part of the reason that they end up changing it.
Well, I think even like last year was a completely different circumstance because you had the expanded playoffs. But I would even be more okay with this wild card game or this wild card round if it were a best of three. Because baseball, you alluded to this in the playoff preview that was on Locked On MLB on Monday, that baseball, more than any other sport, is not a one-game type season. So to have everything boiled down to one game, even if you have two 92-win teams rather than a 107 and a 92, just seems kind of odd. I thought that last year's having the 3-game playoffs, it was exciting. The Cardinals and Padres went to 3 games. I think there were a couple other games, the series last year that went to 3 games. So the 3-game series makes more sense just in that regard and would be more exciting in my opinion. And we would probably make more money that way too, having it be a series. But then you're starting to probably get into deeper into November if you have a Game 7 of the World Series. But you mentioned this is the Dodgers' first time playing in a one-game playoff, right? Since this system was implemented.
Yeah, unless you count Game 163 in 2018 to win the division. But yeah, the first time in a wild card game. And because the Dodgers have won their division 8 straight years. And I think I don't remember exactly when they started the wild card game, having 2 wild card teams, but I think it's been during or right around that time that the Dodgers started winning their division is when they went to 2 wild card teams. And yeah, so it's it's been fun in previous years watching. Like I remember in 2017, when the D-backs and the Rockies were the two National League wildcard teams, and the
Yeah.
Dodgers had the best record in the league. So they just got to sit back and watch those teams beat up on each other. And you saw like the Diamondbacks ended up using like all their starting pitchers to beat the Rockies. I think the final score in that game was like 38-37 or something. And and it's like, and we're just sitting back as Dodger fans, just like, yes, excellent, destroy each other. And it worked out great because then the D-backs had to start Taijuan Walker in game one, and he gave up 4 runs in the first inning. They didn't get to use their best pitcher until game 3 of the series, and by that point the Dodgers were already up 2-0, and they swept them. So like I like the system when the Dodgers win the division, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking when they don't.
Yeah. Well, to the system's point, I think that what it was meant to do was put more emphasis on winning the division. And in that sense, it has 100% worked. Because if you don't win your division and you're in that wildcard team, then you have to play that one game. So in that sense, it has worked. But the Cardinals played the first wildcard game in 2012 was when this was implemented. Cardinals and Braves, and everybody remembers that for the infield fly rule that was called when the ball dropped. Fans
called correctly, by the way.
I thought it was correct. Yes, like
it was absolutely correct.
Call.
Only people with Braves colored glasses on think that was a bad call, or people who don't understand the actual infield fly rule. But anyway, continue, Lucas.
Yeah. So I think that in that sense, it has worked because, like you mentioned, Dodgers have won their division up until this year, 7 or 8, did you say, straight years? And then you can sit back, relax, and you'd be rewarded for that division championship. You only have to play in the National League Division Series. But I think that to say that the Cardinals have more experience in a wildcard game is kind of silly because the only 2 players from that 2012 team were Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright. And one of those players is going to start tomorrow night's game, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But I think that it's going to be an interesting matchup because, I think people were kind of laughing because it was going to be at one point a 100-plus win team versus an 88-win team. The Cardinals at least got up to 90 wins, and the Cardinals and Dodgers had storied postseason history. It's going to be fun. It'll just be another chapter in that history book.
Yeah, for sure. And, we don't need to talk about too much of that history because I don't want to cry on camera. But there has been some good stuff in more recent years, but yeah, it's they definitely, I think I saw this is the 3rd most frequent postseason matchup in baseball history, behind only the Yankees and Dodgers and the Yankees and Giants. I think Dodgers Cardinals is the 7th time they've met up in the postseason, I think. And so it's yeah, it's going to be fun, and it is a totally different animal just being one game. So maybe let's take a break, and we'll talk about the starting pitching matchup because Max Scherzer against Adam Wainwright has a ton of different little facets and intriguing things to talk about with these 2 pitchers. So let's talk about that in a minute. But first, let's talk about Rock Auto, because Rock Auto, who is our title sponsor today, they brought us this episode, rockauto.com. If you're not familiar with Rock Auto, let me explain it to you this way. There are 800 zillion different kinds of cars in the world. You only own 1 or 2 of them. And guess what? An auto parts store doesn't have enough room to stock the parts for all those different kinds of cars. If you go down to an auto parts store to get something for your car, they're either going to have a generic part that, oh yeah, this fits 32 zillion of the 800 zillion kinds, so this will work for you. Or if you want something that's actually made for your car, they can order it in for you and have it shipped to you. Well, guess what? If they're ordering in the part anyway, just do it yourself. You have the internet. You're listening to a podcast or watching it on YouTube right now. That's the internet. The same internet that's bringing you this show with Jeff Snider and Lucas Smith could bring you auto parts by going to rockauto.com. All you do is find your make and model of car. It'll bring you a whole list of all the parts that are available for your car. And you say, there's the one I need. Oh, wow. I just noticed this costs a lot less than they wanted to charge me at the auto parts store too, because it's not just more convenient. It's also less expensive. There's no reason not to use Rock Auto except just flat out being an idiot. And you're not an idiot because you're watching this episode. And so, we know you're smart. We know you need auto parts. Go to rockauto.com. And when they ask you how you found out about them, say Locked On sent me. And then they'll know that we sent you. So rockauto.com, all the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto. Now let's talk about baseball some more. What do you think, Lucas? The first time Adam Wainwright faced the Dodgers in the postseason was 2009. And I was at the game. And it's one of the actual good memories that Dodgers Cardinals postseason has brought us. Matt Holliday's crotch might disagree with it being a positive memory, but I enjoyed that game quite a bit. That matchup was Clayton Kershaw, a young 21-year-old Clayton Kershaw, against a young I would think Wainwright was only in his 40s back then. Now, a younger Adam Wainwright, and it was a great game. And Wainwright's faced the Dodgers a few other times. What are you expecting to see from Adam Wainwright tomorrow?
What we've seen the whole year. Adam Wainwright, you alluded to it. He's no spring chicken. Turned 40 years old in the month of, I think it's the 31st of August was his 40th birthday. You're going to see some curveballs. You're going to see little Uncle Charlie, as everybody, calls him. His Twitter handle is even Uncle Charlie 50. That's how many curveballs you're going to see from him. And we'll talk about the home plate umpire assignment here in a second as well, because that for some reason, unfortunately, does matter in this context. A lot of curveballs, and when his stuff is right, he's not going to strike out 15, 16, 17 guys, but he's going to miss the barrel of the bat. He's going to drop in the curveball for strike one, sinker, cutter combination. He's going to sneak in a changeup in there every once in a while. He was the Cardinals Cy Young Award winner the entire year. When Jack Flaherty went down in June, this starting rotation took a hit because Jack Flaherty is that kind of starting pitcher that if you lose him, it's a massive hit. It would be like losing a Clayton Kershaw if your starting rotation wasn't full of 4 number 1 and number 2 starting pitchers. But Jack Flaherty, when he went down, the Cardinals needed somebody to step up, and that was Adam Wainwright. 7, 8 innings consistently, 0-2 earned runs. And he did that against the Dodgers in the month of September, and his one start there went 7 innings. Faced off against Albert Pujols, which that was fascinating in its own right. But I'm expecting nothing less than Adam Wainwright. We'll talk about it in a little bit with BetOnline, but the over-under is 7.5. I'm taking the under because I think both these pitchers have a chance to shut down an offense.
Yeah, and then on the Dodgers side, we've got St. Louis native Max Scherzer, who did pitch one time against the Cardinals for the Dodgers this year and allowed 1 run. It was unearned on a pass ball. It was the only earned run, the only run that Scherzer allowed over a span of like almost 40 innings at one point with the Dodgers. Scherzer hit a little bit of a rough patch his a couple starts in a row, but he got things righted for his last start. And it's kind of fascinating in a way. I'm glad the game's at Dodger Stadium for a lot of reasons, but I wonder if it would have been better for the Dodgers. I don't know. I feel like pitching in your hometown might, in the postseason might bring a little bit of a extra oomph or something, but not that Max Scherzer needs any extra motivation. The guy's, kind of insane and intense. And, having faced Max Scherzer in the postseason when he was with the Nationals multiple times, seeing him on that side, it's like, I don't envy the Cardinals having to go up against Scherzer because he is a beast. And, I think the most important thing in any game is how good are you at pitching, and Scherzer obviously has that. But to the extent that extra motivation and extra intensity help, it seems like Scherzer's going to have that in spades.
Well, I mean, he had that in spades, and when he pitched against St. Louis, anyways, in St. Louis, I don't think that's going to change when you put him in Dodger Stadium. I mean, because I still think that there's going to be that chip on his shoulder. He also went to the University of Missouri, which is where I'm at right now. Well, I'm in my room, but I'm in Columbia, so that's another motivation, a Missouri tie to the Cardinal franchise. And I just think that, like you said, he's called Mad Max for a reason. He's intense. He knows how to compete. Wainwright does it in a very different way. He's not going to pump his glove and scream like maybe Max Scherzer does every time he gets a punch out, which is exciting in and of its own right. But both these guys, it's not like Max Scherzer's young anyways. How old is Scherzer? Is he 37 yet? 36?
Yeah, I think he's 37.
37. Okay, so we're going to have 2 veteran guys going at it. I think because it's a 1-game playoff, the hooks are going to be very quick for both of these gentlemen. Leashes are going to be short, whatever you want to say. But I think that, it could be, if both starters are on, let me know if you disagree with this, whoever scores first is going to win. You agree with that if both pitchers are on?
It's definitely possible. It's this is one of those games that from the Dodgers side offensively, I could see it going either way. I could see it being and unfortunately, maybe this is the time to talk about the home plate umpire, because if the Dodgers can make Wainwright come into the zone and attack him in the zone and not chase, I feel like things are going to go well for them. But if they chase, if they go outside the zone, it's not going to be as good for them. And the fact is, unfortunately, Joe West is a home plate umpire, and Joe West sometimes is not the best at making a pitcher come into the zone in order to get called strikes,
Yeah, and we were talking off air before this. Any pitchers at the major league level, if they're worth their salt, is gonna take advantage of that. If you're gonna get 2 or 3 inches off the corner, 2 or 3 inches up, down, whatever it might be, because if you get that call once, you're gonna go there again. Because why not? You got the call off the outside corner anyways last time, so why not go there again? And that's what Wainwright's so good at. When he's getting an inch and a half off the outside corner with that curveball, he's gonna go there. Whether it's gonna get it for a called strike, and then you can expand even more with 2 strikes to get a swinging strike. This tweet is from Blake Harris, TBLA. He gave some stats for both of the pitchers with Joe West behind the plate. Just another reasoning that there's a stat for everything out there. So this is Max Scherzer, according to Blake Harris, with Joe West behind the plate. 56 2/3 of an inning, a 2.06 ERA, 1.13 WHIP, 3.35 strikeouts for every walk. Adam Wainwright in just 21 of the third innings pitched, 1.27 ERA, 0.84 WHIP, 3.17 strikeouts for every walk. Those are lights out numbers. And again, you could argue that we're overanalyzing this with Joe West behind the plate, but those are still interesting numbers to dive into. And as we've talked about at length in this episode, in a 1-game playoff, in a 1 game to decide it all, that's huge. 2 or 3 calls can make the difference in a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And those stats, they don't take into account who they were going up against or any of that. I'm actually looking at the breakdown. Scherzer has only had 1 Joe West game in the last 3 seasons. And so a lot of his came earlier in his career. Only 2 in the last 6 seasons. So but yeah, really, unfortunately, hopefully this means that Joe West really is retiring. He hasn't announced it, but hopefully that's why MLB is giving him this cushy assignment to say, hey, thanks for all you've done, and hit the road, Jack.
I believe he has actually notified MLB that he's done after the postseason.
Oh, good. Because in a perfect world, yeah, it wouldn't matter who the umpire is, and it would matter who the pitchers are. But so yeah, it'll be interesting to see because Wainwright is a command expert, and especially over time as his stuff has diminished a little bit, he's become even more of a command expert. Having to not that his stuff's bad, and like you said, his curveball's as good as it ever was, but he doesn't have the fastball he used to, and so he has had to maybe adjust a little bit more and hit his spots, and he's really, really good at hitting his spots. And if those spots are in places where he's getting calls and the pitches are unhittable, that could be bad news for the Dodgers.
I want to ask you kind of a general question before we take a break, and then we'll get into the offensive side of this for both of these teams. Are we seeing 2 Cooperstown Hall of Famers pitch tomorrow on Wednesday night?
We're definitely seeing at least one. Yeah, Adam Wainwright is going to be
an interesting case, isn't he?
He's a very interesting case because, I'm just pulling up his stats right now. He's had an excellent career. Obviously, he's a very good pitcher, but he's kind of going to be one of those test cases to see how do Hall of Fame voters treat this generation of pitchers, because chances are he's not going to get to 200 wins. I mean, he had 17 wins this year. If he has 17 again next year, he would get to 200. But he's at 184 right now, and it used to be you had to get to 300 wins to be seriously considered. I mean, Burt Blyleven took forever to get into the Hall of Fame because he only had 287 wins or something. That's a full 100 more than 100 more than Wainwright has. And you look at if you look at his WAR totals and all this stuff that people look at these days, he's like, it's by traditional standards, comparing him to the guys currently in the Hall of Fame, he's not up to those standards. But pitching is different than it used to be. You don't get as many wins, you don't go as deep, you don't accumulate as much WAR because you're not throwing as many innings. Wainwright, what's his max in innings pitched? 241 looks like. 241 was like a first half for Cy Young, and I think Nolan Ryan probably threw 300 plus innings most seasons, and so baseball's different than it used to be. And I think over time, Hall of Fame voting standards will have to account for that, and they'll either have to, either we'll see some sort of adjustments on WAR, or they'll have to kind of lower those standards and say, okay, we can't just look at that. Right now, it's like 55 to 60 WAR to really be seriously considered. And Wainwright's at 40-ish right now. But compared to the other pitchers of his era, he's probably, I mean, he's one of the, I don't know, 20 best pitchers at least during his career,
I would
probably.
agree.
And you would think 20 pitchers from an era in the Hall of Fame is probably about right. That's not ridiculous to think of. If you look at some of the previous eras, you that's probably close to what you've had. And so I think there's going to have to be some sort of adjustment at some point. And, Scherzer's got the Cy Young awards. He's got the 3,000 strikeouts. He's got those magic numbers that Wainwright doesn't have. But I think Wainwright will eventually be the beneficiary of maybe some adjustments to the Hall of Fame voting criteria or standards. And I think he'll probably eventually end up in there.
I tend to agree. I mean, he's a Cardinal Hall of Famer. Like, they have their own team Hall of Fame. He's a Cardinal Hall of Famer right now. But again, those standards are just so different. And I talk about this frequently. If he had an injury shortened 2015, and then really from 2016 to 2018, he was dealing with various injuries, dead arm, his Achilles still was trying to heal. You know how injuries go. You would get injured one time, you change your mechanics, and then something else gets hurt. He was dealing with that for like 3 seasons. And if you put in a typical Adam Wainwright season in 16, 17, and 18, we're looking at this completely different. And again, it's the what if game, and I hate the what if game because it never ends, but I still think that it's worth noting that we could be talking about this completely differently if Wainwright wasn't to get hurt in 15, 16, 17, and 18. But that's a conversation for another time. If you're a betting man, as you say, you might bet in the long run. Definitely not a first ballot, but maybe another committee gets him in. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk from the offensive side of things. But I mentioned betting, and we have a wonderful sponsor for today's show, and that is BetOnline.ag. We'll talk a little bit of football and a little bit of baseball, because BetOnline is the number one spot for all of the pro and college football action this season. They have a new updated site and interface, so they have more odds, more props, more contests, more ways for you to make money. BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head over to the website. You can use your mobile device as well. Sign up today. Receive a 50% welcome bonus. That means if you deposit $100, you're going to get 50 added onto that with the promo code Locked On when you first sign up. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, or boxing, or Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Let's take a look at the line for the Cardinals and Dodgers game. It's a lot closer than I thought. The Dodgers are favored by just a run and a half. The money line is 220. The over-under set at 7.5. So head over to betonline.ag. Place your bets now. The fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. Well, Jeff, we got a game to talk about to finish up. We've talked about the overall part. We talked about the pitching part. Let's talk about the offense, because the Dodgers are going to be missing their starting first baseman. Is that right? That official?
Yeah. I don't know if it's official yet. I drove all day today. As you can, people who watch Locked On Dodgers regularly recognize the different backdrop here. I'm at my parents' house because I don't live in Southern California, and there's a playoff game happening in Southern California on Wednesday that I had to be here for. So I was driving all day on Monday, so I haven't heard for sure if it's official, but Dave Roberts basically all but said there's no way Muncy's playing in the wild card game. Honestly, personally, I'll be surprised, even if the Dodgers went all the way through the World Series, I'll be surprised if we see Muncy again this year, seeing the way what his injury looked like, how much pain he was in. It's hard to picture him being back. But the one thing that the Dodgers have that a lot of teams don't have is like 3 backup first basemen. That you've got Cody Bellinger, who's a Gold Glove center fielder, and also, oh, by the way, used to be the best defensive first baseman in baseball before he became the best defensive center fielder in baseball. And then you've got Matt Beatty, who can hit really well and can play enough first base to hold things down. And then you've got a guy, you may have heard of, Tio Albert, our good friend Albert Pujols, who
I don't know if that name rings a bell or not.
Will not be getting the start. I am willing to say that. I know Pujols got the start against Wainwright in St. Louis. That will not be happening on Wednesday. The Albert Pujols' value to the Dodgers lies almost entirely in, at least his on-field value. His off-field value is ridiculous. But his on-field value is in picking their spots, facing a lefty.
Yep.
And, he still, He still, in fact, even more than he did with the Angels, he has dominated lefties with the Dodgers. He has come into those spots and had a lot of big hits for the Dodgers. His value is not in being a starting first baseman. And so we're going to see either Matt Beatty or Cody Bellinger as a starting first baseman for the Dodgers. And that's kind of going to be a question of, are they looking more at defense? If they're more concerned about first base defense, they'll go with Bellinger. Not that Beatty's bad, but Bellinger's probably better. And Muncy, surprisingly, if you don't follow the Dodgers, you might not realize Muncy turned himself into probably the best defensive first baseman in baseball this year. He was outstanding at first base. And so the Dodgers are kind of used to that defense. But they also moved Muncy around at times, had him play second and third at times, and they did use Albert Pujols. So they've definitely shown that they're willing to take a hit defensively for the sake of the offense at first base. And so, but Cody Bellinger also has that lightning in a bottle quality. I think I talked about this the other day on Locked On Dodgers, that, he's still a guy who can hit you a big home run when you need it sometimes, even though his overall season has been terrible and he hasn't looked great even recently, but he's got that power potential. And so I could see them going either way with Beatty or Bellinger. And the bottom line is, whoever it is going to be batting eighth probably, because the Dodgers lineup is extremely deep. And, losing Max Muncy for a lot of teams would be a backbreaker. And for the Dodgers, it's like, well, Muncy was actually struggling the last month or so anyway. And the Dodgers won 18 of their last 21 games of the season, without Muncy contributing a whole ton. And so they are equipped. It's never a good thing to lose Max Muncy. To paraphrase Coach Boone on Remember the Titans, you just don't replace a Gary Bertier. You just don't replace a Max Muncy. But the Dodgers, more than most teams, are equipped to deal with that hit.
Well, you threw around the phrase best defensive center fielder or best first baseman a couple of times in that little answer. Cardinals are going to give you a challenge there. Just a little side tangent. Harrison Bader and Paul Goldschmidt. And again, not that you were saying you were making that claim steadfast, but just for the sake of conversation, Harrison Bader, I think, is on his way to a multiple Gold Glove career if he's able to stay healthy and is able to hit. And we all know Paul Goldschmidt can play first base. When Paul Goldschmidt came to this team in 2019, he instantly made that infield defense better, just because of the way he could handle a pick at first base, stretch off, whatever it might be, make a throw. He turned multiple double plays in 2021 that were crazy. Go ahead, Jeff.
They were playing the corpse of Matt Carpenter at first base, weren't they?
They were playing Matt Carpenter at first base. You can use that phrase if you'd like. They were playing Carpenter at first. But so Paul Goldschmidt, Harrison Bader might give Bellinger a run for his money defensively. That's a discussion for a different time. But this Cardinal team, if you were to go position by position, and I'm sure MLB.com will do that because they do that every postseason, and it's fascinating to read. Don't get me wrong. The Dodgers are going to win most of these matchups. Just cut and dry. On paper, obviously, 106-win team, et cetera, et cetera. But lightning in a bottle, you mentioned, this Cardinal team has that. I think I might have mentioned this on the playoff preview. If Dylan Carlson, Harrison Bader, and Tyler O'Neill, the Cardinal outfield, is right, and they're all doing what they need to do, it's one of the best outfields in all of baseball. Yes, I said that. I know it might be a shock because some of you might still be thinking Harrison Bader is hitting 220 and striking out every other at-bat. That's not the Harrison Bader we've seen this year. We've seen it at times, don't get me wrong, but this Cardinal outfield can be legit. One game playoff, you might not see it, I understand that. But this team has some power. Tyler O'Neill, I think, it has the capability of hitting it out of Dodger Stadium. He hit it out of Milwaukee Stadium. I don't know what they call it anymore. American Family Field, whatever they call it. He hit it out of Wrigley, which a lot of people can do. He's got light tower power. So I get that, and you probably tend to agree with me that, on paper, matchup comparisons, Dodgers have it. But this Cardinal offense, when right, is scary. And again, that's a big if, and a when right is kind of a silly thing to say. But I think that it's going to be difficult to do against Max Scherzer. I know that much because Max Scherzer has dominated pretty much his entire career, especially dominated the Cardinals in his most recent start. But this Cardinal offense, lightning in the bottle is what kind of keyed me into this of what you said. This Cardinal offense has that if they're right. And if Scherzer hangs a changeup or hangs a curveball slider, whatever he's got, I think that this Cardinal team can hit it out.
Yeah, I think lightning in a bottle is Tyler O'Neill's middle name. In Canada, they do those 4-word middle names.
He's a strong man, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, and so Max Scherzer is prone to giving up home runs, and he in his career, he's done really well against Paul Goldschmidt, although Goldschmidt was actually the only Cardinal who did hit him in that last
Right.
start
Yeah.
when Scherzer faced them. I think he ended up with 3 hits against Scherzer that day, after only having 2 in his career before that against Scherzer. And so, who knows what's going to happen there. But yeah, I could absolutely see Tyler O'Neill hitting a 450-foot bomb off Scherzer. And the key is going to be keep the other guys off the base. Solo homers don't kill you, and that's kind of Scherzer's career motto is solo homers don't kill you. Keep guys off the bases so that when I do give up an occasional home run, it's a solo homer. Trust the offense to score a little bit more. And you mentioned in the BetOnline ad that the over under is 7.5 runs, and yeah, it might be wise to take the under because this is 2 really good pitching teams. It's also 2 really good hitting teams too, though. And so, it's like it comes down to, at the end of the day, in the playoffs, baseball's still baseball, and any pitcher can have a great day, any pitcher can have a terrible day. And so I kind of think this is either going to be a 3-2 game or it's going to be an 11-8 game, and it's, so really the question is the Dodgers going to score 3 and win or score 11 and win, right? Like, right, Lucas?
That might be a question one could ask in a certain universe. I don't know. We'll have to go to the multiverse of the what if we want to go that way. But you think back to 2014 National League Division Series, Clayton Kershaw, Adam Wainwright, that was supposed to be a pitcher's duel. 2 number ones that year, Cy Young favorites. What was that final? 10-9?
I feel like you lost me. I don't remember that game ever happening.
You blocked that out, did you? Okay.
I was there. I was that yesterday. Monday was the anniversary of that, and
that's right.
Man, I wish I'd pulled this up. If I'd known you were going to bring this up, I saw my time hop today. In fact, Lucas, say something else because I'm going to pull up and I'm going to read you something I posted on Facebook the day after that game.
Okay, something else I can bring up. In game 4 of
if
that
you
series,
say Ozzie Smith or Jack Clark, I will kill you.
No, I won't even go. Jeff, I have so many tools in my tool belt right now. I'll bring up Matt Adams instead, the hanging curveball, and in the 7th inning of that series.
The only bad pitch Kershaw threw in that game. It drives me crazy. He was dominating in that game. He throws one bad pitch to Fat Adams, and suddenly the Dodgers lose the game. Oh my gosh!
Well, they also lost the series that year, Jeff.
I don't remember that. I feel like you're making all of this up. I'm just swiping through my my time, 2014, so that was 7 years ago. Okay, here it is. Facebook on October 4th, 2017. Hearing how hard I took last night's Dodger game, I dreamed that Clayton Kershaw and I were at our respective houses, looking sadly out our windows at the stars, singing Somewhere Out There. Then I woke up crying.
Well, I
Are
feel
you
bad
glad
you
you
did
this to me, Lucas? Do you?
You know what?
Do you feel bad that I was crying, Lucas?
I do. Yeah, I do. At the end of the day, we're part of the Locked On Network, Locked On family. I do feel bad that you were crying that day, Jeff. I sincerely do.
You know what? Matt Adams isn't walking through that door. Dodgers won.
Oh goodness!
You know what though? It's going to be a fun game. I'm excited. I'm going to be at this one again. It's playoff baseball is always fun. It's always exciting. The atmosphere is going to be ridiculous. Dodger Stadium is going to be rocking. Max Scherzer on the mound for the Dodgers. It's been an event every time he's pitched at Dodger Stadium since they traded for him. The atmosphere. Losing the division, or as I like to say, the Dodgers didn't lose the division. The Giants won the division, but having their division title streak broken, I think it's going to give them extra motivation to win this game, to go up against the Giants. And motivation can only take you so far. At the end of the day, you got to play baseball on the field. And Adam Wainwright is not an easy guy to do that against, but it's going to be fun. I know that. You want to fly to LA, sit next to me at the game, Lucas?
Man, if I didn't have homework or classes, I definitely would.
Man, you are a child. I'm sitting here with this gray beard and you're talking about doing homework. Man, you don't even remember Jack Clark and Ozzie Smith.
No, but I remember Matt Adams. I remember Matt Carpenter. I remember. I do remember a lot because I've been blessed in my lifetime to see a lot of Cardinal wins.
Yeah, well, hopefully not on Wednesday, but for your sake, I hope you can find happiness in other ways in life, Lucas, because I do like you. I want you to be happy, and even your listeners. Obviously I'm rooting for the Dodgers here. I have nothing but respect for the Cardinals and Cardinals fans. I'm not willing to say #BFIB, but Cardinals fans, I've been to the stadium. It's a great stadium. I have an Alan Craig jersey because Alan Craig and we share a niece. My niece's uncle is Alan Craig.
Wow.
She's been at Alan Craig's house and watched Adam Wainwright like dance on a broom like it was a pony. So there's a lot to like about the Cardinals, but hopefully none of it will show up on Wednesday because go Dodgers.
Well, we're going to find out probably somewhere between 10:10 and 10:30 Central Time who's going to advance on to play the San Francisco Giants. And it's not like either one of them has a reward waiting for them in the very next round because that Giants team, whoever plays the Giants, a lot of storylines. It's going to be a fun matchup. So we're kind of running a little bit long on time. Jeff, this has been fun. Why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Snider. I'm on Twitter at Snidog. Locked on Dodgers, obviously, wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube at the Locked on Dodgers feed, thank you. Once you're done watching it, go ahead and turn it on the Locked on Cardinals feed too. It's the same video, but you know what? We all need the views. And thanks for making Locked on Dodgers your first listen of the day, every single day. Locked on Dodgers and nothing else, right, Lucas?
I tend to disagree with you. I think you can make Locked On Cardinals your first listen, but as long as you're listening to both shows, you can listen to both. You can find me on Twitter right there. I pointed to the right side at LJ Fastball on Twitter. You can follow the show at LO_Cardinals on Twitter and Instagram when Instagram doesn't go down for the entire day. But as well, you can follow Locked On Cardinals on YouTube. And I encourage you all to make Locked On MLB your second listen of the day today as they're continuing their playoff preview and continue to break down the playoffs. Jeff, this has been fun. I hope you enjoy the game on Wednesday. It's going to be fun, like we've said many, many times. And it's going to be great. Another chapter will be written in the Cardinal-Dodger playoff history book.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucas. Always fun talking to you, and we'll do it again next year.
You bet.